have a very special guest, Simran Sachdeva. Hi, Simran. Welcome to the show.
Hi, Payal. Honored to be here.
Simran is a psychologist and she's also a yoga practitioner. And what I know about yoga is that it's really good for your body because I'm not a constant I've never practiced it for a very long time, and honestly, I don't know the benefits, and that's why we have Simran here today because she's going to talk to us about yoga and its health benefits and how it can affect you mentally in a really good way, and some more new information related the same. So, Simran, thank you for coming today on our show, and we are really excited to know more about yoga and your experience of being a psychologist and how it has affected you mentally. So, let's get on with the show.
Yes, for sure. When it comes to yoga, I think like most people our age or younger than us, when they think of yoga, I was one of them, when I used to think of yoga, I used to think of it's just like an advanced form of stretching.
Right.
And I used to find the entire concept of doing yoga as a very boring activity, like I have always been a sports person. I have always done like really high intensity exercises and everything. And the entire culture around exercising and the health aspect of it is also going gymming or,
Right.
doing some kind of high intensity exercises, which makes you feel cool. And yoga is not exactly very cool, it's like something that old people do usually in our culture. So,
Right.
when I initially used to exercise, yoga was far, far away from something that I thought I would ever try.
Uh-huh.
And then I remember after my master's, I was just a student. I was really confused about what I want to do,
Mm-hmm.
and what kind of a therapist do I want to be. And for me personally, exercising is something when I'm exercising consistently, there's a significant shift in my mental health on the positive side, right?
Okay.
Um, but when I'm not exercising, the mental health aspect is not that great. It's
Uh-huh.
just, I think it's not my personal experience also. I think I would say that most people can relate to this who
Okay.
exercise consistently. It
Uh-huh.
just does wonders for your mental health.
Uh-huh.
So I remember this one day after exercising, and I have this little ritual of meditating after I've exercised. I was thinking about how I could collaborate,
Mm-hmm.
my love for therapy and my love for exercising.
Okay.
And that's when it clicked me that yoga and yoga philosophy, whenever I've heard somebody talk about it and think about it, and it's like there's so much spiritual aspect to it. There's so much of a therapeutic aspect to it as well. So that's
Uh-huh.
when I started exploring yoga. I remember I went to Rishikesh and I learned yoga for a month, and I was completely humbled
Mm-hmm.
as yoga as a form of exercise at the very basic level.
Mm-hmm.
Uh, the kind of nuances yoga has behind it. Like uh, I would say it's a supremely advanced and thoughtful form of exercise more than anything in the market now.
Okay.
And
Wow.
it's so ancient. Um, I would say that because every asana and every the procedure behind it, how you're supposed the process, how you're supposed to start it and how you're supposed to end it is deeply scientific at the core of it,
Oh,
you know?
yeah.
Yeah. Like, and it has these really nice mythical stories behind it also, I think, to make it interesting. It has this uh Hindu aspect to it and all of that. It's very interesting form of exercise, and it has so many therapeutic aspects to it as well, which I'm sure we'll get into later on. But
Yeah.
yeah,
And
just when
like,
it comes to,
right. And
yeah,
I'm so sorry. I was just thinking that, I never thought yoga would have so much effect because, like, it's like you said, it's like for old people, man. Matlab, it's not something I thought even I would do. I remember.
that is also a myth. Yeah, that is
Yeah,
also a
that's a
myth,
myth
I would say.
apparently. Because when I was
Yeah.
a kid, we had these exercises. I used to go to like this international school in Goa when I was a kid. And there they had, other than studies, they also had like we had this program called physical therapy. It was every
Hmm.
Tuesdays and Thursdays. So every Tuesdays and Thursdays, we always had activities like carpentry and yoga and acting and everything as kids. And
Hmm.
yoga would be like the most boring day for me because I'm like, you have, it's like you have to go and stretch, and that's not something I would like. I'm a very lazy person. Okay, I don't like
Yeah.
exercising, and yoga would be the last one because when I'm doing, I have many a times, and I don't want to sound offensive for those who are deep practitioners of yoga. Many a times I found myself sleeping off while doing it in between. I
I think as a yoga practitioner, I would consider that a victory, honestly. If a student has fallen asleep in my class, I feel like maybe the stretching has calmed him down enough to, I would take that as a win, maybe. So, yeah. No, but like I was saying, that there are so many different forms of yoga as well. Like when I got into yoga, I was completely awestruck with the entire philosophy and the theory of it.
Uh-huh.
But also, I also found out that the style of yoga that you do doesn't have to be that boring, like, touch your toes and then just like, stretch your body a little bit and hold it. And that does sound a little boring, honestly. And I think with my background of doing intensive exercises, but also I had great teachers. I tried to make it a bit more fun. There's
Mhm.
so many types of yoga which are not boring at all. They require so much core strength, like Ashtanga yoga, for example,
Okay.
has is a very it's almost like HIIT, like a
Uh-huh.
high intensity interval training
Right.
in yoga, because they
Wow.
have advanced levels of vinyasa flows,
Uh-huh.
which use different kinds of breathing techniques as well. And by the end of the session, you're basically drenched in sweat.
Wow.
And
Okay.
yeah, and people get extremely tired. You need a lot of upper body strength for it, a lot of core strength for it. It's quite advanced.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
So it yoga can be anything you want it to be, honestly. It depends on your personal goals and what you're trying to get out of it, honestly. There are so many different types of yoga. Yoga is not your normal everyday stretching at all. You
Right.
can make it anything you want to be. I think people just need to research a little bit more about yoga.
Uh-huh.
At least our generation.
Yeah. No,
That
agree.
is.
Totally agree. But do you think,
Yeah.
like for someone who's a beginner in workout, मुझे ही समझ लो, because I know I need to start working out. But as a beginner, do you think yoga would be a good start, or should someone to lose like immense weight, they should start with something like HIIT, or maybe like some hardcore exercises before they mellow down into yoga? I mean, I know you told me there are many forms, which I want to ask too. How many forms of yoga is actually over there? But
Yeah.
I wanted to know this too. And even for our audience, I'm pretty sure there are many people out there like me who are like,
Yeah, trying to lose weight and all.
yeah.
If that is your goal, why not yoga?
Mm-hmm.
Like if I'm telling you that there's a form of yoga that incorporates cardio as well as breathing with it and has an immense scientific basis and process to it, the
Uh-huh.
start to end, like why not? Like I know it sounds extremely intimidating that you need upper body strength, you need core strength, you need to
Right.
twist in these ways and the other days, but that's what the entire philosophy of yoga is. You don't need to be the best in order to start yoga.
Mm-hmm.
Any level or any beginner or any person can start doing yoga from today itself, no matter how inflexible they are. It's not about flexibility at all.
Mm-hmm.
It's about starting where you are
Mm-hmm.
and being comfortable with that and slowly and sustainably
Mm-hmm.
reaching your goals,
Mm-hmm.
right? Sustainability is key in any kind of thing that you do.
Okay.
So I guess yoga has so many options and varieties for you. You can just pick and choose. People are coming up with new variations each day as well, which I think is very interesting as well. Like
Uh-huh.
they're mixing yoga with Pilates and everything.
I heard.
So I
Yeah.
think, yeah, I think this blend of the new age with the old age is also something that's really interesting to me.
Uh-huh.
So yeah.
So How do you feel now? Like, mixing yoga and being a psychologist together.
Oh, I love it. I love it. I love it. I absolutely, um, it is so funny. Like, I feel like, my entire professional journey,
Mm-hmm.
along with mixing yoga with mental health aspect,
Mm-hmm.
being able to bring both of those things together practically and practicing that.
Mm-hmm.
And I don't think a lot of people are doing it. Like, I don't think I
Yeah,
know another person who is doing this.
right, right.
So, it in a sense has been a slightly lonely journey,
Mm-hmm.
uh, in that sense, but it's been extremely nice. If we're talking about it, like there's a spiritual aspect to yoga as well, which I was
Uh-huh.
introduced to after getting into this entire study and process.
Uh-huh.
I felt like it has been a beautiful journey of self-discovery also, and along with that, that's how my practice has also evolved.
Uh,
As beautifully as I feel at the cost of something, whatever it's going to
you
sound
must be, of
like.
course, of course.
I feel like my practice as a therapist, as a yoga instructor, and simultaneously me as a person has
Uh-huh.
grown so beautifully. I love it. I just absolutely love it.
That
I'm
is
so
really
grateful for it.
inspiring.
Yeah.
It's really
And
inspiring to even hear it too.
yeah, and it's such a beautiful blend. I'm surprised not a lot of people are doing it, but that's what our study of psychology and the interplay between the mind and body is also so recent. Not a lot of people have indulged in this or somatic therapy or these kind of things because the role that the interaction of the mind and body plays is
Mm-hmm.
very limited, you
Mm-hmm.
know. And even within psychology and the cognitive sciences, there are people still debating whether the mind and body are a separate unit or whether they're embodied, the
Right,
entire concept of embodied cognition, that where does our consciousness come from? Is
right.
it solely in our brain, or is it also, can we also be the humans that we are today with our consciousness, just with our brain, with our neural networks and everything? I strongly am a believer of embodied cognition,
Uh-huh.
which is that your consciousness cannot exist without your body.
Of course.
Your senses are what makes your entire consciousness experience. It is what the interplay of both of them are what makes my consciousness. If
Mm-hmm.
I don't know how my fingers feel or how my fingers feel touching this laptop or whatever it is, I will never be able to register that experience into my consciousness. So there is definitely a huge role that our bodies play on on an everyday basis from the minute we wake up,
Uh-huh.
um, in contributing some way to our consciousness and our conscious experience. So why would it not affect our mental health and our emotional well-being? Is my question to anybody. How
Mm-hmm.
do you not think that there is any connection? There has to be one, right?
Of course. Of course, of
Yeah.
course.
So, yeah, that's why I completely fell in love with yoga the minute I studied it, their entire philosophy. And more to say anything, because our psychology coursework, curriculum, and everything, even in India, is so heavily influenced by Western therapies and
Right.
techniques.
Mm-hmm.
I was humbled uh,
Uh-huh.
after reading yoga philosophy and our entire Eastern techniques of how we view consciousness. And there are so many interplays of
Mm-hmm.
yoga philosophies, consciousness, and chakras, even with Freud's work. You'd be surprised. Yeah, you'd
Really?
be so surprised. Really. Like, like there is a comparison for sure. Like, it's like whatever Freud says is somewhere is already being said about our consciousness.
Right, right.
So, I just, oh my God, I would love if more people start working in this area because there is so much to explore.
There is so much.
The
Yeah.
blend, yeah, the blend of Western techniques with Eastern philosophy is amazing. The possibilities are endless.
Uh-huh, uh-huh.
So I'm really excited about
Wow.
doing much more work in that area.
Listening to it, just it's really fascinating, because I think a lot of us wouldn't have really thought that yoga has such a far reach in so many parts of your life, about yourself
Yeah,
and everything.
especially in a therapeutic setting, because whenever people
Yeah.
think about yoga, it's all a lot of people might consider it like as boo-boo spiritual things, like which has
Yeah.
no scientific backing or no scientific basis whatsoever.
Right.
And that is somewhere where even I was humbled.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
I would not like to admit it, but I think I was also one of those people, you know, having studied, done my specialization in clinical psychology and everything like that. I was heavily influenced by the pathological view of psychology that came from the West, pathologizing everything and um, just focusing on the symptoms and, not looking at the bigger picture of things.
Right, right.
I think psychology, even now, even up until very recently, had a very pigeonholed view
Mm.
of mental health and mental illnesses. I would think because it's at such a nascent stage, psychology as a subject. We've
Right.
just recently started,
Looking
doing
into
a lot more research
learning.
on it. Yeah.
Of course. Right, right.
So it's constantly mutating, and I love this mutation of have people studying more of how stress and trauma is stored in the body and
Yeah.
all of that. Those things they really pique my interest. And having uh, witnessed it and having a lived experience myself, I can 110% vouch for how it's brought in all kinds of positive impacts in my life. I feel like it has been transformative.
That's, I know. I mean, when I listen to you talk about it, it's like a whole new thing altogether.
I'm selling yoga to you very well, and
Yeah.
I sure hope so.
No, it is. Don't worry about that. It
Yeah.
is. But I wanted to take it up again, like, but it was really long back when I used to do yoga and I stopped it completely in between. And now I want to get back to it. And I think I told you that before also, like, I want to get back into yoga and everything.
Yeah.
And
My suggestion to you would be find a really fun teacher.
yeah,
Your yoga instructor can make or break your first experience of yoga. And I was like, just find a right fit for you. Uh, I'm sure that you will not enjoy all types of yoga.
mm.
So try out a class here and there and
If
just
you're
stick to
ever
one.
taking, if you're ever taking online, I might opt for yours.
Oh yeah, that's my goal now. That's what how my goals have shifted in life from taking physical classes to online classes. So yeah, that's in the near future. I shall keep you updated.
Yes, please do. And coming to that, I wanted to, since it's from Ekam, I wanted to talk to you about Ekam actually. What made you
Yes.
start Ekam Wellness? It was when I heard about it, I was like, wow, this is something new that Simran would do. So I wanted to know your thought process behind Ekam, why and how.
It's a really interesting story, and you some experiences in your life, I think you have to go through to realize that.
Mm-hmm.
Uh, I guess it's just something that is written in your destiny and something that's just supposed to happen.
Mm-hmm.
Uh, I know how it sounds, but I had no intentions of starting Akam.
Oh,
Uh,
wow. Okay.
yeah. Uh, yeah, it's very interesting. Even when I look back at my life, I'm like, wow, how did this happen? So, I was like any person would be after their masters, like your entire life is charted out until you're studying, and then you're just like launched into the world and like now figure it out on your own, with no
Yeah.
plans. Because up until then, all your time is accounted for. Like, yeah, I'm done with 10th boards. Okay, now next is 12th boards. Then you have to graduate. Then you have to do
Graduate.
your master's.
Yeah.
And then you're left into the world and like, okay, now what? Oh shit, now I have to figure out how to fill my own time.
Mm-hmm.
So I was completely confused as to what I want to do in my life. I for sure knew I was considering a lot of different things. Like, I was like, okay, do I want to do my MPhil?
Mm-hmm.
Or, do I want to start practicing? Or do I want to maybe start working with my dad? Or like, the world was full of possibilities and I was confused out of my mind kind of a person.
Yeah.
And that's when I got into yoga actually. And I remember I was figuring out, yeah, I was doing courses here and there. I went to Rishikesh, I did my entire certification in yoga. I came back and I remember talking to my best friend, and she's like, oh, you're done with yoga now. Why
Mm-hmm.
don't you come and take a workshop at my place?
Mm-hmm.
Because she had her own marketing thing going on where she wanted to do
Mm-hmm.
agriculture, hospitality, and all of those things.
Mm-hmm.
So she's like, why don't you come and do a workshop with me? And I was full fresh with knowledge and everything like that. I was like, yeah, sure. I have a lot of material. Let's go for it. I was completely enthusiastic. And around the same time, at a party, I met this really old, at a family gathering, I met a really old family friend of ours and we reconnected. And I remember not speaking to him much in that party. And I remember my nani was talking to him a lot,
Mm-hmm.
you know. And at the end of the night, she tells me, ki, oh, Simran, he does a lot of designing and marketing and all of these things.
Mm-hmm.
You should probably talk to him,
Mm-hmm.
about what you're thinking about. Because at that point, my family and everybody were like, "Ki, why don't you just start your own thing?" Because I would go and complain to them that the internships in psychology are either paid or they pay nothing.
Right.
That's our entire culture around internships in India,
Unfortunately, yes, it is. It is. I
which
agree.
which me as the kind of person that I am, I'm morally extremely against it, like ethically as a person. I would hate to make somebody work for free for me, and I would hate to work for free for somebody else, you know?
Mm-hmm.
And this is like internships are not internships, they're basically just courses that you do, I guess, workshops or
Yeah.
some shit.
Yeah.
Um, so I was morally against it. And there are not a lot of supervision culture in India as well right now,
Of
which is
course.
extremely sad. But around the same time, I was going through LinkedIn, I was trying to find a job, and I found a supervisor
Okay.
who had recently passed out from this. I think this is the only place which has a supervision master's.
Vision, culture and masters. Yeah, even I heard that because
Yeah,
one of my friends also went over there and she told me.
yeah,
I
yeah.
was complaining to her about
So,
this thing कि bro masters हो गया है सुपरवाइज करने के लिए कुछ नहीं और आधा हमारा मास्टर कोविड में गया है so there's like no experience, there's nothing.
yeah, yeah, yeah,
It was scary for me too and I was lost,
yeah,
so I get it.
yeah.
I get where you're coming from.
So I remember reaching out to her, and I had a session with her, and she gave me a lot of clarity about how I could integrate yoga and therapy and how supervision is just for my benefit and I can start that. Like she gave me a lot of assurance back then as a new starter or of private practice that I needed. Because in my head, I was like, if I'm paying somebody, okay, to
Mhm.
teach me how to be a good therapist,
Hmm.
nobody will sit with you
Hmm.
and hold your hand in a therapeutic setting.
Of course.
Therapy as a process is such a intimate in the sense it's such a private process between the client and your therapist. Unless and until you use some sort of invasive approaches like recording the session
Hmm.
or anything like that, which most people in India are not comfortable with. You can't do that in India because for people to just come to therapy is such a big deal. Now you tell them that we're going to record you while having your session. They
Hmm.
are definitely not going to like it.
Obviously.
So the only way you can do it is you have to figure out your um, way or your path as a therapist in India by yourself. And it's like if I have to pay, I'd rather not pay for an internship and go and learn the same things I've already learned in my master's. And I might as well just start practicing because that's how I'm going to learn the most, you know.
Right.
So I found a supervisor. I knew how I was going to practice. I sat down with her. I charted out how I was going to practice as a therapist, what kind of a pet therapist do I want to be, how
Mm-hmm.
am I going to integrate yoga and therapy. And yeah, that was me as a therapist. But yeah, sorry, I got off track a little bit. I
No,
was
no,
telling you the
actually, I
story of,
want to hear more. I want to hear more.
yeah,
Yeah.
yeah, no, but yeah, also like how Ekam started was I had no plans to start it.
Mm-hmm.
I met the person who has done the entire branding and the logo of Ekam and the vision behind his logo was
Right.
my family friend Mehul. He's amazing.
Uh-huh.
Um, and he sat down with me for days and we charted out this entire process and it could not have been done without him, honestly.
Wow.
Uh, and the Ekam name was come up by my sister.
Acha.
And yeah, and he took that entire philosophy of Ekam where like Ekam basically means the solidarity and the coming together of two things, the merging of two things, the unity of
Uh-huh.
two things, union, you could say. So the coming together of yoga and therapy, and it was beautiful. And I started Ekam with a workshop that I took in Satara.
Mm-hmm.
It was a really fun day. I loved taking the workshop. I loved being a yoga instructor. And after that day, there was like no looking back. Like I knew that this is what I have to do in my life. So it was just funny how the entire workshop was organized by my best friend. The branding was done by my family friend. The
Uh,
name came up
from
by
your
my
family.
my family. It's like Akam was a baby that was probably birthed by me, or I have to take care of it, but it
Nurtured by
took a
everybody else.
village. Yeah, it took a village to raise it, like, or come up with it.
Yeah.
So, yeah, and after that, it has been an extremely, I would say, interesting journey, although it has had its ups and downs of me figuring out how uh, practically it will be the most useful to
Mm-hmm.
people in India. Yeah.
Wow. It's, that's something. That's really nice, actually.
Yeah. Yeah. And Ekam has mutated and grown and leveled up or changed its direction and goals and ways and approaches
Mm-hmm.
as I have evolved as a person as well,
Mm-hmm.
according like me. So yeah, it's been extremely interesting, my professional along with my personal.
It's been, I
Uh,
think, 4 years now for Ekam, if I'm not wrong.
no, this is my third year going.
Third year going.
So so we started in 2022 Feb.
Uh-huh. Uh-huh.
Um, so 23 and no, actually my second year going on. Wait, no,
Yeah, if you started in 2022, then yeah, this is your second year going.
Feb. Yeah.
Right.
No,
Wow.
no, no. Third ongoing in Feb
Sure.
this year.
Right.
Anyways, whatever.
2, 3 years
We're
ago.
clearly not that great at math. We're just girl mathing our way through this.
Well, like around like 2, 3 years, pretty much.
Yeah, yeah,
Yeah,
let's just say that. Let's
let's
just
just
say
say
2, 3 years. Yeah.
that. So, Simran, earlier you were mentioning about somatic therapy. I
Yes.
wanted to know more about that. I'm sure our audience also wants to know what somatic therapy is and how you incorporated it with yoga. How does it actually help you as a whole?
Yeah.
And also,
So,
how is it different from traditional therapy?
like your traditional talk therapy.
Yes. Yes. Traditional.
Okay, all right. So, I think my process is very unique to me, um, because this is something new that I am doing, right? So basically, I refer to this entire science behind how our body responds. We are all creatures of habit, right?
Right.
Humans are known as creatures of habit. We are known to even have specific neural pathways for how we respond to things. Fair
Mm.
enough? And
Mm.
changing those responses also takes, those neural pathways also takes such a long time for us
Right.
to consciously do it. First, be aware of them and
Mm.
then be able to change it. So, if you think that something as delicate as neural pathway, even the internal neural pathways of your body get so rigid and so set in their habits and their ways, do you not think the same thing would be happening with our bodies as well,
Okay.
right? With other parts of our bodies.
Right. Right.
Um, so let's talk about, say, suppose first and foremost, the kind of stress responses that we have. For
Mm-hmm.
people who don't know, there are like are three or four. The fourth one is relatively new and understudied. But we have three ways that we respond to stress primarily. Okay, this I'm just trying to sum it up and dumb it down as much as I can,
Of
right?
course. Yeah. 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 Yeah.
Yeah. So we have our fight response, we have our flight response, freeze response, and a fourth one, which has not been studied a lot, the fawn response.
Uh-huh.
So now with each of these we use all of these stress responses
Mm-hmm.
in different situations, but
Mm-hmm.
we have a few, one or two of our favorite ones that we like to engage in, like, most days that, because they're the most comfortable, our bodies are the most comfortable with them. Or
Right.
maybe we've just had to use them more growing up or whatever. So our body, they are just our body's go-to stress responses.
Right.
कि चलो हर चीज को सेम तरह से रिस्पॉन्ड करेंगे बिकॉज आवर बॉडीज एंड आवर माइंड्स आर creatures of habit.
Right.
uh, they can't do so many complex calculations all the time because we live in such a fast-paced world.
Right.
Now, um, in today's day and age also, our stressors have also gone up immensely. Fair
Mm.
enough.
Of course.
We, our frontal lobe has evolved a lot. But our limb brain is almost very primitive, like as similar to as cavemen would probably respond, or it's still called the reptilian brain because
Uh-huh.
it's very similar to the brain that a reptile has. So any small thing in our environment elicits the same response as though we're going to die.
Exactly. Yeah.
Our body is constantly trying to survive in today's world. We are constantly And imagine, like, even though I'm sitting here talking to you,
Mm-hmm.
I'm going to hear a loud sound somewhere far away in my environment. And the first thought of my body and my mind is going to be like, oh shit, I'm going to die.
Yeah.
Okay,
Yeah.
like,
Yeah.
that is how primitive it is. I know I'm comfortably sitting in my room. I
Yeah.
know there's nothing happening around me. I know that on a conscious level. But the only job that my reptilian brain has is to make sure that Simran survives, given at any point of time.
Mm.
Now, the loud sound is probably a very obvious indicator of distress or something.
Mm-hmm.
Our mind gets distressed even when we're scrolling social media
Yeah.
because our brains are so complex. It's like, we're a very high, uh, like we're a laptop with a very high processing power.
Mm-hmm.
Okay. Like with a very shit memory backup. Does that make sense?
Yeah.
So we're constantly, the processor is constantly trying to keep up with this horde of information that is coming up. But
Uh-huh.
our memory backup is constantly like getting overheated, you know?
Right.
So
True.
because वो update हो ही नहीं रहा है. अब
Obviously.
वो तो हार्डवेयर का प्रॉब्लम है. हार्डवेयर हम अपडेट कर ही नहीं सकते अपने आप. वो एवोल्यूशन पे होगा slowly slowly.
Right.
But the advances in our commerce, in our technology, we're having a hard time catching up with that evolutionary.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
So now these stress responses that I was talking, I strongly believe that we are not cognitive humans first who get emotional. I feel like we are emotional creatures from a very survival point of view who have become cognitive and conscious. Fair enough.
Yep.
So if we are constantly stressed, uh, we have such a nice network inside our body, uh, which which just for survival will shut down a few systems in your body and
Mm-hmm.
keep the others alive, okay, and functioning over time just so that we survive. Now, different stress responses have different results in our body. One will make your blood pressure high,
Mm-hmm.
make your heart beat much more faster.
Mm-hmm.
It'll make you sweat more,
Mm-hmm.
right?
Mm-hmm.
It'll uh, it'll make your breath very shallow and very deep, or very you'll almost feel breathless. Um, you'll Some people have gut issues. They'll immediately want to expel their urine, or go to the washroom for um,
Right.
basically a bowel movement. And others will have stomach aches or constipation. So, depending on a lot of factors like heredity, or the kind of specific stressors that you have grown up with,
Mm-hmm.
different people will have different responses physically as well.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
Right? Now, ये तो बहुत internal वाली बात हो गई. Now, let's talk about the kind of the structure that I mostly deal with.
Okay.
Okay. I
Okay.
do ask my clients about their overall general health and well-being as well. But
Mm-hmm.
when we're talking about yoga and how yoga helps, I mostly, when somebody walks in, I scan their entire muscular system,
Okay.
right? So, even when any of these stress responses that we indulge in, that our body automatically responds to, we don't indulge in them, sorry. I would like to scratch that. It's an automatic response. We have no control over it. But
Right.
we can try and bring it awareness to it and control it. Each freeze, flight, fawn, freeze response will
Mm-hmm.
make our body also tense and rigid in a certain way.
Mm-hmm.
Now, the most people who are tensed a lot while working in the software or IT industry are usually bending from their upper backs and their necks, and they're constantly frozen over their screens in stressful environments. You're going to notice this slouch a lot from their upper back. A lot of people hold a lot when they are tensed. They tend to hold and make their muscles very rigid around their tummy.
Right.
So they can have gut issues as well. Some
Uh-huh.
people have lower back issues, hip
Uh-huh.
issues, period issues. Then you go lower down, um, like they'll have muscle pain somewhere or the other in their body,
Mm-hmm.
unexplained muscle pain.
Mm-hmm.
Now, what yoga does is, so this is referred to as the person's character armor.
Okay.
Every time uh, somebody is in a stressful situation, their body will get rigid in some way or the other.
Mm-hmm.
Okay. Because imagine, like, say, suppose you're scared of lizards, right?
Mm-hmm. I'm okay with lizards,
Yeah.
man. I've never been. ठीक है, मान लो कि भाई मैं हूँ. Okay.
Yeah. And if I were to throw a lizard at you, you would freeze. Your first reaction would be to freeze and then run away, you know? Even when you're doing that, certain areas of your body are getting more blood than others. They're
Okay.
getting rigid. They're getting frozen. That's your character armor, your body's character armor.
Mm-hmm.
With yoga, what I try to do is release that tension from those areas slowly and gradually, so that at a very basic physical level, there is release. And unconsciously, what is happening is, not unconsciously, I think with a lot of awareness,
Hmm.
um, you are giving this sort of a creating this sort of a biofeedback mechanism,
Okay.
right, to your brain
Yeah.
that, okay, I am safe. I
Uh-huh.
am releasing this tension from these areas of these muscles, whichever are tensed. I
Mm-hmm.
am safe, you know,
Mm-hmm.
because they only tense up when you are having this sort of a stress response in a situation. So
Mm-hmm.
that is why somatic therapy, not only through yoga by doing asanas physically, the amount of breath work also that you use, the amount of uh, grounding exercises and getting in touch with the sensations in your body and feeling them,
Uh-huh.
right?
Right.
We do realize as psychologists that therapy is not a solely cognitive process. We are realizing that, right? It's about feeling safe with
Uh-huh.
the sensation in your body and
Uh-huh.
not rejecting it. This sort of dissociation that happens with your mind and your body in today's day and age is immense.
Mm-hmm.
We have become solely so cognitive, and that is why so much overthinking, so much of our dissociation from our body happens, that we are constantly living in our mind. And you know what happens when we're constantly living in our mind. Our reptilian brain is constantly overactive and it's interpreting everything as stress. The more you tune into your body, the more you learn how to relax your body and keep sending that biofeedback to your brain that I am safe right now. Even right now, if I hear that big blasting sound somewhere in my environment, I
Mm-hmm.
think my first response is going to be to check my environment, right?
Mm-hmm.
And make sure I'm physically safe right now. The
Right.
minute I give that biofeedback back to my brain that, okay, I have nothing to worry about, is
Mm-hmm.
when my parasympathetic system will kick in, right? And it will try and soothe all, uh, reverse all the stress responses in my body.
Right.
Does that make sense? Yeah.
Yes. Yes, of course.
So this process is continuous, right? If your body is in stress, some things will stop working, some things will work over time.
Mm-hmm.
And then this other system is there to take care of getting everything back in order.
Right.
Okay, like regulating the dysregulated nervous system.
Right.
But because in today's day and age and in this modern world, we are constantly stressed. So our nervous system is constantly dysregulated.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
And no matter how much our nervous system tries to regulate itself, if we are under constant and chronic stress,
Mm-hmm.
beyond a point, itna stress को reverse करना for that poor system is also gets very difficult.
Right.
So it, in a sense, it's our job to sort of take that into control and make sure we give ourselves a fighting chance
Mm-hmm.
by trying to reverse these symptoms.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
Yeah. And symptomology, symptom, symptomatology is where we are struggling. We're only dealing with a few of the systems and we're not looking at the whole big picture. It's a holistic picture that we need to look at. We need active talk therapy
Mm-hmm.
along with this releasing of stress.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
Does that make sense? Because if we release a lot of stress as well at the same time, the person can get quite overwhelmed as to what is happening
Right.
because this person is not used to probably um, dealing with these sensations in
Mm-hmm.
their body or being even aware that these sensations and these feelings exist within their body because the dissociation is so huge. The gap between the mind and the body is so huge. So yeah, it's definitely a slow process. It's definitely a complex process. It's difficult. But I think if people are truly committed to their therapeutic process,
Hmm.
like most good of the good clients are, the
Right.
more aware clients are, the process gets a lot easier. And
Hmm.
I would say that, yeah, it definitely does work when you sustainably do it. And it's like it's like if you go to, even to a doctor for any physical illness as well, they're
Hmm.
going to give you a course of whatever medicines that they're going to do it. It's your
Right.
job to take them, and it's your job to take them sustainably over the period of assigned duration, like, you know.
Yeah.
So, yeah, it's not like we're miracle workers. I mean, that's the myth that people have when they usually come to therapists, you know, like, oh, she's going to solve all my problems.
Right.
Um,
Even take
so I think,
जितना ही
yeah,
तुम मदद कर रहे हो उतना it's your our job to make sure it works for us too. उतना
yeah,
effort डालना है.
yeah, for sure. Yeah. So, yeah, that's about it. I guess I've blabbered too much.
No, no. I
If you
mean,
have,
this is like so educational for all of us. Someone who's getting to know more about yoga and everything. I
yeah,
wanted to know if you've had any success story with a client who has come and told you the that yoga has actually helped them since you've taken
yeah.
workshops past. Any success story you can tell us, which
Uh,
made you immensely happy too.
workshops, I don't know. I can tell you about a client that I worked with,
Uh-huh.
and uh, I'm so overwhelmed with that one client of mine. I think even in my most burnt out days as a psychologist,
Mm-hmm.
um, knowing that at least I have made a difference in this one person's life because he's like my I think my biggest success story, I guess. So I'm just overwhelmed by that. Um, there has been so much progress. He meditates every day now. He
Mm-hmm.
has was completely disconnected from his emotions.
Mm-hmm.
He used to completely intellectualize them. Okay.
Mm-hmm.
Uh, even though we as a generation are very aware about mental health, it's still on a very intellectual level, right?
Mm-hmm.
We still don't successfully know how to feel our feelings and our emotions.
Mm-hmm.
Uh, using somatic therapy to first and foremost make him feel comfortable during the therapeutic sessions.
Mm-hmm.
And getting him out of that extremely dysregulated space where he was not sleeping, eating, and uh, he was not even releasing that stress from his body by crying as well.
Mm-hmm.
He was not even crying.
Mm-hmm.
And this entire mixture of um, talk therapy, along with CBT also, we used a lot of CBT techniques as well,
Mm-hmm.
along with a lot of breath work, somatic uh, grounding techniques, a lot of releasing of stress through yoga.
Mm-hmm.
And I think meditation is something that he started on his own, which I'm extremely proud of
Nice.
because that's something that people really struggle with.
Right. Of course,
Uh,
that's true.
yeah, and I would be lying if that like I also don't struggle with like meditation. I do.
Mm-hmm.
So yeah, because it's a ritualistic, devotional, disciplined process if you need to. And then if you do it very often, it's almost addictive.
Uh-huh.
So he
Yeah.
started doing that. And of course, like I won't say that he's healed completely or cured or like anything. I think that's a myth. Nobody can be completely healed or cured or fixed. Mental health and mental health journey and healing is um a process, a journey, or almost a lifelong one that you have to keep tending to, like you tend to your body. Like you won't just completely wake up one day and be like, oh, I'm at the peak of my health and I'm going to stop eating. I'm going to stop sleeping. I'm going to stop taking care of my health. You won't do that, right? The same
Yeah.
goes for mental health. But I am just glad that after working with him, I was able to bring about positive impact and understanding in his life. So
Mm-hmm.
yeah, somatic therapy definitely did um, play a huge role
Mm-hmm.
in that.
Have you ever had burnouts? I mean, I'm after I
Oh,
think after starting Ekam, it must have reduced. I could be wrong, but have you ever had burnouts recently or when you were a psychologist?
yes, I had my biggest burnout last year in September and October because I was constantly working without a break.
Mm-hmm.
Uh, I was doing so many things at the same time when Ekam started.
Mm-hmm.
I was suddenly I was a business owner,
Mm-hmm.
a first-time business owner. For
Mm-hmm.
the first time, I was a yoga instructor.
Mm-hmm.
For the first time, I was a psychologist.
Mm-hmm.
And at the first time, I had so many people to interact with, clients, and then I was figuring out setting up my own clinic and my private studio, right?
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
There were so many things happening on a professional level, just on the professional level,
Mm-hmm.
that we don't realize that professionals also have their own human experience that they're dealing with
Correct.
and the personal life that they are living in the background. Not actually in the background, very much in the fucking forefront, you know?
Yeah.
Yeah. In fact, I would say that your professional lives are your background
Uh-huh.
because beyond a point, you know? So, on in my personal life also, things were just there was too much happening.
Mm-hmm.
And um, handling all of these things. Also, oh my God, as a business owner, I have, and as a therapist, I've realized that social media plays such a big role these days in advertising your own and becoming a successful therapist. That was an additional stressor, you know.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
So, yeah, dude, managing all of these things was extremely crazy. And I personally went through an extremely bad breakup last year,
Oh.
which just pushed everything over the edge. And I know this is an extremely taboo subject, and not a lot of people discuss it, but we as psychologists also go through mentally unhealthy phases. You know,
Of
we
course.
also go through depressive phases. We
Yeah.
also deal with anxiety from time to time. And
Mm-hmm.
I can say that I through and through went through an extremely depressive episode after my breakup.
Mm-hmm.
It was a time of intense grieving,
Mm-hmm.
and I took a full-fledged break from work
Uh-huh.
because I felt like it was my responsibility uh, towards myself and as a result to my clients as well.
Mm-hmm.
That I pour into them from a glass that is completely full and not half full. Does that make sense?
Yeah, yeah, yeah. It does, it does, it does.
And people just don't know how the process of even therapy works. So for them to digest the fact that a therapist herself is going through mental health issues, how does that equate? You know, how does that work? People are just like, oh, why don't you just apply all the techniques that you have learned on yourself? I was
Surprisingly,
like,
that is what a
yeah,
lot of people say. I've had people telling me that the same thing too. Ki
yeah,
tumko
same.
anyway you counsel them, why don't you use the same thing on yourself?
Yeah,
And to one point, what even I've also realized that studying the subject and sometimes counseling someone does help you to some point if you actually relate with the treatment that you're using. But after that,
Hmm.
sometimes you just need someone to listen to your part who is not a like sometimes you just don't want to be a psychologist that time. You just want to be like any other normal person who wants to talk about their problems.
Yeah, yeah, exactly. What people don't realize is that we psychologists are also human beings,
Yeah.
and we are also living our human experience on this earth for the first time.
Yeah.
You know, we are also having our unique human experiences, and it's not even about uh, using the techniques that we know on ourselves. Who says we don't? But
Mm-hmm.
we are only human, and we will go through grieving and be periods filled with grief and difficult situations that we have to deal with.
Mm.
And we are not all knowing human beings. We are not God. We are not saints.
Obviously.
Yeah, we 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 also have our own blind spots, right?
Yeah.
As any human being does. We also have our fun little imperfections and flaws that we are completely and utterly blind to. So we
Yeah.
we also need the support and the help of other therapists
Mm.
in helping us guide our way through navigate our blind spots and bring light and awareness to those blind spots of ours.
Mm-hmm.
And I don't think that in any way makes me a bad therapist. I used to struggle with that thought. I used to really struggle with that thought. I used to try and be a perfect therapist, I guess,
Mm-hmm.
which the perfectionism in itself is such a flawed concept.
It
You know,
is. Yeah.
you cannot be perfect. So, but for me, in order to be a really good therapist, my mental health always had to be top notch.
Mm-hmm.
And I have realized that as a human being, that is never always going to be the case. There are going to be days that I'm going to be functioning as a therapist when I'm having a terrible day.
Yeah.
But that is not to say that I will not be 100% professional in my therapeutic setting, and I will not bring my best self in that therapeutic session.
Yeah.
Because in fact, even on my worst days, showing up for my clients and being a therapist has always distracted me from my own pain for a few hours. And sitting with empathy with another human being,
Mm-hmm.
having that human experience in itself
Mm-hmm.
uh, is extremely a rewarding experience.
It is.
I think
It is.
any therapist would tell you that at the end of the session, the fulfillment is completely different.
Yeah.
Uh, I can't describe it like,
No,
and
I get it.
yeah.
In my
In fact, I think my experiences with mental health, my
Mhm.
personal experiences have only made me uh, a better therapist. It's made me connect better with my clients.
Yeah. No, I
I'm
get it.
able to relate.
I
Yeah.
get it. Like even in my 3 years of experience of counseling after masters, helping them and being in that experience, listening and being empathetic is truly rewarding. And
Yeah.
it's like this, it's like a very, I don't know, it's like you feel completely light.
Yeah.
Although
I
they're the
feel like I always take more. Yeah. You also get to learn so much from your clients.
yeah, that is true. There's a lot you
Uh, it gives you so much perspective in life.
Mm.
I love being a therapist. I absolutely love it. Uh, no other profession uh, gives you that kind of an insight into somebody's life, that level of trust that people endow in you. And you know you're never gonna break that trust.
Hmm.
Um, that entire experience of providing a safe space to somebody, even if it's just for an hour or two.
Hmm.
Oh God, I love what I do. Like, it's just you learn so much from them as well. There's so much perspective. Yeah, like the insights you get into with my profession, I feel like I don't live just one life. I have lived through or at least seen so
Yeah.
many.
Yeah.
It's
That is true. That is
it's
that
it's
is
a spiritual experience to say the least.
true. Yeah, it is. It is. And I wanted to come back to you where you were saying it was a it's about how psychologists themselves go through a lot. Have
Yeah,
you ever come across this situation where um you're in a argument with your partner or with your family or with your friend, you're in an argument and you're not a psychologist that time, but you're just like a person. And that thing which they shoot at you, तुम तो psychologist हो गई, तुमको तो समझना चाहिए.
Oh my God, Payal, the amount of times I have witnessed this is ridiculous. And I think I have come up with the perfect response to this is if somebody shoots this at you is, yeah, exactly why you should listen more to me because I'm a psychologist. Probably that's the one thing that you can shoot at them. But
That's a
you have to understand that when people throw this at you,
Mhm.
uh, they are completely like there is so much dissonance in them, like, in terms of looking at you as a uh, first, not as a human being, but first as a psychologist.
Yeah.
And they don't do that uh, out of sheer, like, not being able to relate that she's a human also. It's,
Uh-huh.
I feel that truly that people do that to shame you, you know? Like,
Yeah.
you're a psychologist,
Uh-huh.
you must always behave so and
It's like
such
an
a way.
unexpected, it's like an unrealistic expectation from,
Unrealistic,
yeah.
unfucking realistic. And yeah, like, dude, I am a human being too. I am also from time to time going to have unreasonable bouts of anger, or I have my own triggers that I'm working on through life.
Obviously.
I'm having all of these, like, I'm a full-fledged human being as well. If you think a psychologist should always be calm and cool and collected and give like very pleasant responses, then
Mhm.
what you're thinking about is a robot.
Yeah.
I think what you're thinking about is a robot. What makes us good at our job is that we feel a full range of our emotions, and that involves the negative emotions as well.
Yeah.
If tomorrow a client comes up to me and he's like goes like यार मुझे गुस्सा आया था मुझे कुछ तोड़ने का मन किया था and I just felt like breaking something and I was so angry and I'm sitting there as a therapist and I'm just not being able to relate to his experience and not being able to empathize and I'm just be like okay this guy is very angry like no dude that reaction is coming from somewhere.
Hmm.
Where is that coming from? He's feeling an emotion. Anger is an emotion by itself.
Yeah.
It may be a secondary emotion. It's coming from somewhere. It's completely fucking logical
Hmm.
and it serves a fucking purpose.
Yeah. It really irritates,
So,
like, it really irritates me when someone,
yeah, it's extremely irritating when people use that psychologist card on you.
like, yeah, the
Absolutely.
psychologist
We're
card.
not better human beings than you. Yeah, we're not. We just know about mental health and how to manage our emotions better than you for
Yeah.
sure. We're a lot more aware as well, but we're also as human as you are. We are not saints. We are like your next door doctor who also gets stomach aches from time to time. You won't go up to a doctor and be like, why are you having a stomach ache? You're to a doctor. I think he also has a body. He
Yeah,
also has a body. He, poor guy, gets a stomach bug from time to time. He's not
not
immune to
all of
all the
us only
diseases
actually.
now.
He's exposed to these kind of
Yeah,
diseases more than any of us. वैसे देखा तो वास्तव
yeah,
में काम पे.
exactly. So when you explain this concept to people in terms of a doctor and a client or whatever, they
Yeah.
understand. But these mental health concepts, emotions, and everything, they're such abstract concepts. Now, people have not been able to wrap their heads around it these days. I
Yeah.
mean, since forever, I guess. So, yeah, but these conversations so need to happen because just last week I was with somebody
Mm.
and she asked me, ki, oh, you go to therapy, but you're a therapist? Like, how does
Yeah.
that work?
Yeah.
And I'm like, she's like, but why? You know everything, no? Why can't you just apply it in your own life? I was like, yeah, I do,
Mm.
to my best knowledge, apply everything in my life.
Oh.
But because I'm only human, I have my own triggers, which I
Uh-huh.
can't look beyond. I
Uh-huh.
have my own blind spots, and I also need help too. That's about it. I don't want to go through life without uh, seeking help, basically.
Of course.
It's just easy. Why would you make your life more difficult by doing everything alone when you can just seek a little bit of help
Right.
and make life a little bit easier for yourself? And I think at the very core of it, that's exactly just what therapy is.
Hmm.
Having a safe space where you can just talk about anything and everything and sort all the mess out in your head and
Mm-hmm.
become aware of all the things that you're not aware of
Mm-hmm.
in going on internally. So
Right.
that's about it.
So here, do you have well, before that, I want to ask, like, are there any myths in yoga that should be clarified to our listeners, something that you'd like to share with us? And also for someone who's starting, any advice to your audience about yoga and how they can reach you and everything?
I think I would give you a combination of both yoga and therapy because I feel like therapy is also the need of the hour, right?
Mhm.
So I would say when it comes to yoga, no, it's not boring.
Mhm.
You just need to find the right class, the right style, and the right fit for you. Yoga
Mhm.
can be extremely fun.
Mhm.
Uh, it's not just advanced level of stretching. There's so much more to it. The
Mhm.
interplay between your body, breath, mind, the amount level of control
Mhm.
that you will feel over your life in general once you start doing yoga. It's
Mhm.
incredible. And
Mhm.
the same goes for therapy. I
Mhm.
think there's no shame in asking for help
Mhm.
and trying and understanding how your thoughts work, what your emotions are trying to tell you,
Mhm.
why you're feeling a certain way, and
Mhm.
how can you better manage your emotions. I think that's a lovely awareness to have, wouldn't you believe?
Of course. Of
Like, we are highly emotional creatures. I think it's about time we start addressing those emotions and
Mhm.
not go through life dissociated
Mhm. Mhm.
and numb and just going through life. So, yeah, that's about it, I guess.
So we're at the end of our podcast. Before we end, how can our listeners connect with you and learn more about Ekam Wellness?
Yeah, y'all can definitely, first and foremost, I think, check out my website, which is ekamwellness.in.
Uh-huh.
And I think any information that you need or anyhow that you need to contact me, you will get all that information on the website for sure.
Oh. All right. Thank you so much for joining us today, Simran, and amazing
Thank you so
content.
much, Payal, for
It
having
was
me. I
fun.
loved chewing your ear off
I loved it
about all
too.
of this.
I enjoyed listening to a lot about, there's a lot I learned today from yoga, and I think I'd like to incorporate it in my life as well. And thank you
Perfect.
everyone for
Love that.
listening to us today. You will find
Yes.
Simran's Instagram account, I mean, the link, and of course, her website links below on the description below. Please subscribe to us and give us a good thumbs up. And you'll also find us on Spotify. And stay tuned for the next episode. Thank you.
Thank you.